worked at Microsoft, Uber. When you actually get into Y Combinator, what happens is that you go through, you're part of a batch. It's a very valuable program, like companies like Stripe, DoorDash, or a lot of these companies actually got started from there. YC honestly has just been so crucial to helping us get started. I don't know what we'd do without it.
Hi Akanksha, welcome to the Go Girl podcast. I'm so excited to have you on this. I've been waiting for this episode because I really want to know about your company and also your experience at Y Combinator.
Yeah, I'm very excited to be here, and thank you for having me. I know I've been kind of following your journey for a while, and we got connected last year, so I'm glad that we're finally here doing this. So, yeah.
Yeah, I would love for you to start by giving us a bit about what company you're running and how it's been going.
Yeah, I am the founder of Backdrop. It's a tech startup, and what we do is we actually work in entertainment. So really, we serve anybody who is doing project-based work. So think like film productions, TV productions. You're doing an event, you're making a YouTube video, could be anything, short form, long form. But what happens is all these people end up having a lot of expenses that they have to do for these productions, and managing those expenses can be a hassle. So we're an expense management platform, and we help track all of those expenses, pay vendors, and really just organize everything in one place so you always know where you're at with your with the money that you're spending and how you're doing against your budget.
Amazing. I think the entertainment industry needs such a SaaS platform. But I'm curious on how you got started with this idea because I do know you were working at some impressive companies. So how did this come about?
Yeah, so if you look at my background, it's mostly tech and finance, right? So that's where I come from. I worked at Microsoft, Uber, a lot of this big tech expertise that I come with, and to get into entertainment, I actually initially hadn't thought that I would get into entertainment at all. But my co-founder, she used to work in film before, so she's worked in different capacities on set, and then when we decided to do a company together, we looked deeply into entertainment, and we saw a lot of manual work being done behind the scenes, and just kind of seeing, it was a combination of well, we see a problem, people don't like doing this task manually, and we have the expertise in our team to be able to build a solution that people will like. So it was a combination of those three things that really made us want to do this.
Amazing. You said that this wasn't initially supposed to be this idea. So were there any other initial ideas that you guys were working on and then you sort of pivoted to this?
Yeah, we didn't really work on anything for too long. We were just considering different ideas. And then entertainment was just something that we looked deeply into. And when she worked, that was a few years ago, and she kind of went back to it and was like, oh my God, things are still being done the same way that they were done, 5, 10 years ago, and then things haven't changed. And so that was kind of the motive, instead of trying to build products for people who already have tons of products, and making iterative changes, why not build something that actually modernizes and kind of transforms an industry where things are done manually and things are, and just really inefficient. So that was kind of the thought process behind just ending, we ended up choosing this one for that reason.
Right, and I'm seeing this as a trend a lot that a lot of new products are actually digitizing industries that are still backwards. For example, for my startup also, we're creating products in the auto space, which
Yeah.
is very backwards as well. And there are these terms that are thrown around a lot, founder market fit, product market fit. Can you tell us, maybe explain these terms for people who don't understand? Because what I'm
Yeah.
noticing is that people with extensive background in industries that they've been working on are creating products for the same industries these days.
Yeah, yeah. Well, so when you build any product, right, really there's a lot of components that go into making sure that you can succeed at building a company and not just a product, right? So one is you need to know the problems, and the more you've worked in that industry, if you are from that industry, the more you know those problems because you may have faced themselves yourselves, right? So that kind of gives you an advantage already, and then you build a product around it because you already know, what are the problems, and you've talked to people, and it's easy for you to talk to people because those are your peers, right? So that's where a lot of the founder market fit comes in, right? Do you have any expertise in the area that you're building? Do you have any connections in the area that you're building that will help you get started? Because when you start, nobody knows about you. You kind of need to build your credibility in the market. You need to build a product that people like. And ultimately, when you do all of this, really what it comes down to is how good your distribution is, how good your sales are. And if you already have a lot of people that are ready to talk to you, and that are happy to talk to you, it becomes a lot easier than somebody just going into a random industry, not knowing what to do, and not having any connections and not understanding the nuances of that industry. So that's kind of where the founder market fit comes in, as well as similar to that is the product market fit, right?
Mm-hmm.
Are you building something that you have built in the past? Are you building something that you have the skill sets on your team to build, right? Like, so for us, we're building something that, we've built products at big companies before, both purely tech companies as well as finance companies, and understanding how, not only how like the tech gets built, but also understanding how can we bring different financial products into that product suite that we're building, and how can we put it all together in a way that that serves our customer from an end-to-end standpoint. So you need to kind of know both of those. Not saying that if you don't know that you can't build a product, it just helps you
Mm-hmm.
go a lot more faster than if you didn't. So
Yeah, and I'm also curious to know, like, given like your big tech experience, like, what motivated you to like leave a cushiony corporate job to dive into this world of unpredictability? Because I rejected a few offers this year and I decided to go the startup route, and it hasn't been the most easiest. So, like, what was your thought process behind this?
I mean, it's the tech experience that makes you either want to, okay, I love this and I want to keep doing it, or you're like, okay, I love it, but maybe this is not something I can keep doing and I want to change. And for me, it was the second thing, right? It was like, oh, this is really cool. Like, I got to work on products that billions of people use, and that's really rare, right? Like, shipping those features out to people all around the world. But then you also, at some point, you're like, okay, maybe I want things to move a little bit faster. I want to be able to, kind of have just kind of dictate, like, be able to strategize a bit more and not have to run things through so many chains.
Mm-hmm.
And you have a vision that you want to execute, but it's a lot slower to do it in a bigger company. And so I think it was really great that I got that opportunity to be able to work at a lot of these cool companies and learn how products are built from 0 to 1, as well as like also work on established products, and then taking those skill sets to actually build something from scratch, build a company in a space that is, hasn't been really modernized in terms of tech as much. So that was, it was a little bit of like, okay, yeah, I think it's time to take this forward.
Yeah, and I think it's a different rush, right? Like when you build something from scratch, like you start from line zero. So
Uh,
was that like the experience for you? Like, did you build out the MVP yourself, or how were the initial days at Backdrop?
We have built everything out ourselves. Obviously we have partnerships and we have some products that we use to be able to accelerate our product development, right? We're not building the scanning technology, for example, in-house, but we're leveraging a scanning technology that already exists and is perfected over the years. So, but yeah, I mean, initially the definition of MVP honestly has changed so much as we as we started. This is another one of those lessons where when you're a big company, your MVP is very much defined. You're like, this is what I'm going to ship. You have all the research in the world. You have all the teams in the world telling you what to do. But when you're starting a company, you have no idea, right? Like you've talked to maybe 10, 20, 100, 200 people, and that's the data that you have, and you think that, okay, maybe if I build these features, this would be enough. as an MVP for people to try it out and give you good feedback, and you can build on from there. But that changes, right? As you get customers, as they try it out, and you're like, oh crap, like I didn't have this. I think we should have that. And I I don't think we realized when that MVP became a full blown product. And now when we look at a product, we're like, okay, wow, like this is this is a lot that we built.
Yeah, and don't even get me started on the pivots, like so many pivots.
Yeah,
I
you've gone
think,
through a fair share of your pivots.
oh God, yeah, we changed from like B2C to B2B, so it's like a completely different business model now and feels like a different take on the same product. But oh, like my founder just told me about some bug that I was fixing like right before this call, and we discussed three new features that we want to do based on that bug already. So it is crazy. Um, and I think that's where your technical expertise is so important because you know how to ship these features. You worked on like products with so many users, so that is super cool. I want to before we discuss more about the company, I want to go back a bit. You started your journey in India and then you migrated to the US, so I want to discuss and know more about how did that happen? How did you come to the US and what was that journey like?
I was born and raised in India. Actually, I was born and raised in Ayodhya, if you know that place.
Mm-hmm.
It was a bit of a rural community there, and went to school. Those like really good years, and then ended up around seventh grade is when we moved to a city. We moved to Lucknow, actually,
Oh,
and
nice.
yeah, and that was cool to kind of see and get a little bit more exposure than I had previously. And that's where like I started taking my first like, computer science class and you know a lot of things that are that weren't there before. And then I was considering for the longest time, honestly, like doing the the IIT, like going into
Mm-hmm.
engineering that way. And then really just I don't know what happened, but I was like, I think it'll be cool to go abroad and study, and then I applied, to a lot of these U.S. colleges and got into Michigan, and that was kind of why I moved to the U.S. To study, and then things kept happening after that, right? Like I got a job at Microsoft and moved to Seattle, and one after the other, things kept happening, and then I quit my job to start this company. But yeah, it was a kind of a non-traditional experience because it was like, okay, you started out in this community that was really small and very local and rural, and you didn't really know much what was happening outside to then like slowly getting more and more exposure and advancing that way. So yeah, it's been
Yeah, that's quite a journey. And how was your experience like pursuing technology in India? I'm glad you didn't go the IIT route. The exam is brutal.
uh,
I was also considering it before I escaped that whole thing, but yeah, how was like pursuing technology in like India? Was your community supportive? Was it okay for you to do it, being a girl?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, my family and everybody, in just in the society and the culture I grew up in, like everybody has always been super supportive of, me going to school and pursuing whatever I wanted to pursue. So there was always so much encouragement. I think with tech, I initially was like, I had all these ideas about what I wanted to do. Like I wanted to be an astronaut for the longest time, and so like I like I was like, okay, I'm gonna do this, and then I was like, no, you know what? I'm gonna go into computer engineering, and so I started out more on the hardware side. Didn't really like it as much, and then ended up like, okay, yeah, I think this is what I like, and I ended up on computer science, and I think that was such a strong foundation, even though I don't code in my day-to-day life anymore. Just kind of knowing how products are built and what goes into it, it's just so important to have somebody technical on your team,
Mm-hmm.
one person being technical on your team, especially if you're building a tech product. And I think that's we've been really lucky to have two of those on our team as on the founding team. So I think yeah, it's just been such an asset, honestly, and I loved doing that. Loved all the people I've met and a lot of the connections you make too when you do go into those kinds of programs. Like they end up being your coworkers later down the line or the people who join your startup. And so it also just helped us build a really strong network. Although both of us went to Michigan, so I met my co-founder that way too. So I guess that's how my company got started, is because of computer science.
That's amazing. I mean, biggest network is your co-founder, right? It's
Yeah.
almost like you're married to her for work.
You are. I mean,
Yeah.
I talk to her all the time. I just got off a call with her right before this meeting, and we were talking about a roadmap, which is an ever-changing list as well.
Wait, so did you guys like you're a bit further along in the startup journey compared to where I am, but like did you guys go through like a lot of pivots and like changes in the roadmap? Is that normal at the speed that everything changes?
It's very normal, and I feel like if you were not having that, then you're not doing things right. Um,
Mm-hmm.
if it feels like everything is quiet and there's not a lot to do and things are just going, and I feel like then there's not much happening in your company, right? That's an indication. So it's very normal to keep pivoting. That means you're listening to your customers. Your customers are giving you feedback, and you're iterating based on that. I always see this, and I see it in my own startup because we do compete with quite a big companies, a lot of big companies that have a lot more resources than us, a lot more funding, a lot more people. But the strength that we have is that we're able to ship way, way faster than they can ever do
Mm-hmm.
that, right? So if you're not iterating, if you're not pivoting, if you're not listening to what people are saying, then you're not using the strength that comes as a startup to its fullest, right? And that's how you win, is by doing things way faster than your competitors can. And so it's pretty normal. We have it every day. There's every day's chaos. You wake up, you don't really know what the day is going to entail, right? Like you can't predict what's going to happen, but it's fun. That's the fun part of it.
Yeah, it's like I wake up and then I have that overarching doubt about what am I doing with my life, and then I get started, and then it gets exciting, and then it gets low and up and all those. But that's the fun part of it. That's the life we chose, I guess.
Yes, that's what you chose, and I think if you didn't have that, you would be bored, right?
Yeah.
You'd be like, okay, what am I? Then you would still be thinking about what you want to do with your life, but you wouldn't be having fun.
Yeah, true. And I think like shipping fast, the 2 week sprint schedule stopped working for us like a long time back because I was like, oh, I'm gonna make this proper. I'm gonna be like on Jira putting all the tickets, which is great, which is what we still do. But sprints are like 2 days, sometimes 3 days. Like depends on what we need to ship. 15 minutes based on me fixing a bug and stuff right now.
Yep, yep. It's overnight. You're working. Then there's no working out. There's no 9 to 5. Like you don't get your weekends. There's a lot of times where I'm talking to people and they're like, "Oh, have a great long weekend," and I'm like,
I
"What
was like,
long
there's a
weekend?"
long weekend.
There's a long weekend.
So
um,
there's this like really cool co-working space I work out of where all the startup founders are there, and I was just like casually washing my lunchbox, and this guy making coffee is like, "Hey, is there like Monday and Friday off this week?" I'm like, "Yeah, somebody was telling me about it," and we were like discussing about these long weekends like they don't exist for us, which is so true. So I think that's a universal experience with startups.
yeah, and like those weekends when everybody else is not working, it's like so nice and quiet for you to do focus work. So you're also like excited about those times. You're like, oh, yes, holidays are coming.
Yeah, it's like we left the 9 to 5 to work 24/7.
Yeah, and even if you're not working, even if you're not on your laptop doing something, like it's always like this is
Yeah.
running, like constantly. Yeah, but it's fun. It's really fun. I wouldn't do it any other way.
Yeah, it is fun, and that's why I guess we're in this life. And so exciting! Y Combinator. Oh my God! For the people who do not know Y Combinator is, do you mind like telling us a bit about it? Like, what is Y Combinator?
Yeah, yeah. So Y Combinator is a startup accelerator, and it's based out of Silicon Valley, and they take the earliest of the earliest companies. So when you're like, maybe you don't even have an idea, or you have an idea and you've like worked on it a little bit, or you have like some initial funding, but usually you're at very early stages, and they basically guide you through your startup journey, give you the resources that you need, mentor you, and they give you funding as well. So you kind of apply to this program, and it's a very competitive program. I believe it has a less than a 1% acceptance rate.
Mm-hmm.
So, but it's a very valuable program. Like companies like Stripe, DoorDash, or a lot of these companies actually got started from there.
Yeah, and it's pretty cool. Backdrop was a part of it. So how was the experience?
It was awesome. It was I always, whenever think of it, that is the hardest that we have ever, both me and Caitlin, have worked in our lives. Like those, because when you actually get into Y Combinator, what happens is that you go through, you're part of a batch,
Mm-hmm.
and then there's like these 3 or 4 months where your batch is actively meeting, discussing your goals, you're getting mentored. And during those 3 to 4 months, like that's like the most progress you have ever made in your life. And so it was awesome for us. Like we got to like we have some like amazing mentors who built like billion-dollar companies before. And more importantly, we met like so many founders, and we have like such a strong network of people that we can talk to, get help from, and just like know that they exist and they're doing the same
So
thing.
important. Yeah.
Yeah, they're
It gets so lonely at times. It's so important to have like a network you
yeah.
can fall back on.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, YC honestly has just been so crucial to helping us get started. Um, I don't
And
know what we'd do without it.
yeah, I mean, it is the dream, right, for startup founders. So what stage do you guys get into YC4?
So when we got into, we were in the ideation stage,
Mm.
and so yeah. So actually, our journey started with YC, which is why it's even more crucial. Kind of like it was a very crucial time when we got into YC. Yeah, so we went through like building our MVP during the batch. We went through getting our first customers during the batch, fundraising. Lots of important milestones happened during those 2 3 months.
Amazing. Now that you started the topic of fundraising, like how's the climate right now? I hear it's kind of hard to fundraise and like VCs are being super picky. There's not that much to go around. Is it improving according to you or?
It keeps improving and then not improving. Like if you just look at the general stats, like it might go one way or the other, and that's always going
Mm-hmm.
to happen, right? Like, sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not so good. And when we went through fundraising, there were just so many things that happened during that time. Like, ChatGPT dropped and everything went crazy. Then we had the Silicon Valley Bank collapsed, and there was a bank
Mm.
run, and everybody's money was tied up, and so you're always going to have events like this. I think what's important at the end of the day with fundraising, I find, is regardless of the climate, if you are building something important and you're able to communicate that to the investors, um, I think the market should not affect you as much. Obviously, it does affect more and more as you go in later stages because you're going to need a
Mm-hmm.
lot more money. But early stages, it doesn't have as much as impact as we think from the news. It's really about like if you have made meaningful progress and you can show the right metrics and you can show the right trajectory and vision, people who want to invest, they get it, right? So it's about painting that picture as opposed to being afraid about the market and what's happening outside because you can't control any of that.
Right. And there's like this stat around there that only 2% VC funds go to like female founders. So how has your experience been fundraising as a young female founder?
Yeah, I think, just seeing these stats, these numbers, it's always so shocking because a lot of the times, when we're working, and I don't know if you have the same experience, but when I'm working, like I don't really think that I'm a female founder or that
Hmm.
like I don't think, oh, if I do this, like is it gonna have a different impact? But then you see those stats and you're like, oh wow, okay, must have subconsciously like maybe at some point must have happened, right? Somebody must have discriminated or not, right? So it's really hard to pinpoint, okay, this happened and that's why there's this stat, right? It's something that's probably like not visible to us all the time, right? And
Hmm.
so what we can do really is just keep going. I think persistence is what we have, and we can just keep doing that, right? So even with fundraising, Either you can think that, oh my God, because I'm a female founder, I'm not going to be able to raise, or you can just keep trying and keep trying, and somebody's got to give you money at some point if you're building something valuable, right? So, um, yeah, it's always interesting when you see these things because it's not good. It's not good. But we're the only ones who can change it, and we can change it by trying.
Yeah, and then trying, getting rejected, but like trying again, because Chad out there is gonna try 500 million times to
Exactly.
raise money for his AI company that's gonna
Exactly.
change the face of the world. So I think it's very important to keep trying. And startup journey is like that. Like there's a lot of rejection that you face. So were there any key rejections that you faced that like changed something, maybe in the product or like in yourself as a founder?
Yeah, I think as a founder, I think that's one of the biggest things that you have to get used to is rejection because I mean for me I get rejected every day. Like I have demo calls and they're like I'm not interested, or fundraising, I've done so many meetings, right? So I think it's just so important to not take yourself too seriously and take things personally. Um, and so I think in terms of any big rejection, I'm trying to think.
Because there's so many.
There's so many, yeah, there's so many. And well, I guess the biggest are the ones where you think that you have closed this deal because they have said yes, but then they don't respond to you anymore.
Whoa.
Or so that one sucks. But like, you're doing a demo, like you always know that, the other person can say
Hmm.
no. So in that case it's expected, but it's when they say no, when they say yes and you're like, okay, I'm gonna send you the contract, let's do it. And then they ghost you. I think that's
Hmm.
the worst one for me.
Yeah, I think that it's really hard, especially like the ghosting. At least like if you want to say no, just tell me that you're not interested anymore.
Yeah.
So how did you get like your first few clients? Was it through a lot of like doing these demo calls and just putting yourself out there?
Yeah, so it was a lot of like initially when we started, we had we tried to leverage our networks as much as we could.
Hmm.
And like that's where what we were talking about earlier, around like founder market fit comes in, right? Because if you
Hmm.
already know some people, it becomes a lot easier. At least at the very least, these people would get on a call with you, right? And then after
Right.
that, it's about how good your product is and how good of a salesperson you are. Um, but that's kind of a lot of the warm connections we had, people we knew, people we got intros to, like those were our earlier clients. And now it has kind of advanced to inbound, people we do cold outreach to. It's like all sorts of different channels that we have. But yeah, initially, if you can just leverage your network, I think that's the fastest and the easiest way to get started because those people know you, and so they're more likely to trust you and trust something that you built, versus a person who doesn't know you at all.
Right. I think relationships are super important, and that's why the advice there is like to cultivate them early, even if like you're not gonna use them. Even I think what we do is like we try to go in and ask people for feedback, like even our future clients, just for feedback, so that they get to know that we exist. There's a product out there, and we're not looking to sell you anything. We just want like your feedback on what we have built. So it's really important to cultivate those relationships early. So, what is next for like Backdrop? Where are you right now? What are your next goals? Where do you want to reach?
Yes, we are. So from where we are in terms of our product, we've actually built, like I said, right, like MVP has evolved over the months and years, and now we have this massive product that can serve a production end to end. It can do all the way from giving your crew cards to paying your vendors to tracking your receipts and getting you on approvals and all sorts of things. So I think we feel very good about our product, and we've been getting a lot of really good feedback from people who have been using it as well and using it really well. So it's really just about like anybody at this stage where they're trying to get more and more customers, as many customers as possible, and really hitting a lot of those revenue milestones that you have with getting to the next stage. So yeah, it's just about sales and building those distribution channels.
Amazing. And now that you've talked about like having this really big product, can you like dive a bit into the journey as well? Because I'm sure it didn't start out to be super big. And I think that's what intimidates a lot of people, at least intimidated me when I started building my product, which was so simple like a year ago. And now it's also like a set of complex features. So most people think that if you are looking at like established products, those are built overnight. That's not true. They have taken like years, and like you can start with a very simple code base and it can quickly get complex. So, how has your product journey been like?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that YC or Y Combinator says, one of their teachings is do things that don't scale. So I think that's one of the philosophies that we've used with our product. So if somebody needs something, just build it.
I love that.
You don't have to build it in the most efficient way possible, the most beautiful way possible, right then and there, but you just build it because you have nothing to lose in the early stages. Now it's a very different story when like your product is evolved and you're like, oh my god, if I add this feature, will everybody need it? But in the beginning, it's just so if somebody needed something, we built it. And so once you have a lot of these iterations, you start to see common themes. So like, okay, I think a lot of these people need this, and seems to be a favorite feature, right? Let's invest more into this. And we're seeing these friction points. So let's make sure we capture those sort of like making sure that those problems are fixed. So that's kind of like how the process has been. It's like either we have that intuition, we know that this is something we have to build, and a lot of it, like what we're building, it's not. I wouldn't call it super revolutionary because this problem has been solved in other industries. There are products out there that do solve this. So also taking inspiration from your competitors, but also the similar products that you have in other industries and seeing what they have done and the trajectory that they have taken. That gives a lot of input in terms of product. Also, whatever your customers are saying, that's the most important. And then you also see like what people are saying versus what they're using and where the usage is coming from, and you invest more accordingly. So nothing is built overnight. You just start building things and you build it in a way that serves your customer, but you don't necessarily have to spend weeks and months building something if you can just do it in a faster way. So like for example, a lot of the times they're like, oh, can I ingest this like big file into your platform? And we're like, sure, you can. That doesn't mean we have an import functionality. It just means our team is manually in the back end inputting things for them, right? So that's kind of how you go, and if you have to manually input so many times, then you realize, okay, maybe I should build this. So yeah, it's a process.
You like YC has validated my entire developer journey right now, because it's either like you ship fast or you ship scalability, like well-written features. And sometimes like as a CTO, I'm like, oh my god, I don't have any unit testing, but then the code sort of changes so quickly. Like 50% of the code that I was using last year is not even being used right now because
Yeah.
everything has been changing so fast. So would it have been like any point creating tests for those? So I think till you reach that stable product that you can white label, and now you're just trying to get more clients, and there's no point in like making it the best code out there, because even companies like big companies like the places I interned at are refactoring their codes after like 10 years of being established and everything as well. So you can always refactor later,
Exactly.
and that is great.
Well,
So
we didn't have a test environment for the longest time. We So stuff like that, right? Like you don't have to. I think that's one of the issues. There's disadvantages of of coming from big tech and big companies. There's also disadvantages because you're like, oh no, I need to have a whole Jira board and Epic and a feature and story points and all that, and you'll realize like all of that doesn't really, in like reality, like you move much faster than that process
mhm.
was set up to do. So yeah, it just as long as you're shipping things in a fast way, it doesn't matter what you're doing behind the scenes.
Yeah, and I so relate to like the manual stuff, because we had this client request a new emailing feature, like a whole email market campaign,
Yeah.
and we could either integrate our entire product with that marketing campaign, which would take a lot of month, or I could download a simple CSV, send it to my founder, and she could do like stuff manually. So we just chose to go that way for now. So it's okay to have a bit of manual, a bit of like not spaghetti, but like decent code that is sort of working, not breaking, but might break when you scale, at least when you're in the early stages. So
Absolutely.
I remind myself that every single day because every single day I'm also like, oh my God, I need that test and prod environment because what am I going to do without that? Perfect. It's
Yeah.
so validating to talk to like other developers and founders that are going through the same stages. So thank you for
Sure, everyone
making
has
me.
this like thing every day where they're like constantly evaluating, should I build it? Should I not build it? Is it going to be
Yeah.
throwaway work? Like it's a constant battle.
Yeah, for sure. So, before we end this episode, like, do you have any lessons that you want to share with people who are looking to do their own startups or like are tinkering with an idea but don't know if they should take the leap?
Yeah. Um, I think one of the things that I've found is, and I've taken my time, my sweet time to figure out if I wanted to do this and when I wanted to do this, and that's one of the regrets now is like, oh my God, why did I take so long, right? So, um, and while like as we're kind of doing the startup, you realize that there's a lot of like good things that happen to you, but then there's also a lot of like, rejections like we talked about and things like that that happen to you. And and one of the things that I've learned over time is to not take anything too seriously.
Hmm.
And I think that's the advice that I would give to people who are thinking of starting a company is to not take yourselves too seriously, because if you take yourself too seriously, you're going to start thinking about, oh my God, like if I do this and I fail, like that's just going to look so bad on me, or like, oh, like, Microsoft would never take me back. Like what if it fails? What am I going to do? Like I won't have any money, right? Like stuff like that. I think if you just separate yourself from those worries and those things and like just focus on like the job that you have to do, the task that you have to do without like thinking of all the negative things that can happen. I think it's just the decision becomes a lot easier that way. And trust me, once you do a startup, once you're a founder, you will learn way, way more than you would ever learn at, a bigger company, because at a bigger company, you're focused in one department and one product and one feature, as opposed to, when you're a startup, you're learning sales, marketing, everything, product development, you're the HR, you're the admin, you're like
Hmm.
everything in your company. And so if that's the kind of thing you want to do, then like there's no way you can prepare yourself for that except to actually just go and do it.
Yeah, and I think especially for people in tech, I think like starting or doing a startup is not taken as like even if you fail at it is not taken as a failure, more like a badge of honor, and you can always go back to those big tech companies because they aren't going anywhere.
Yeah.
So if somebody wants to take that time and bet on themselves, I think tech is like one of the safest industries to do it in because you have the skills to always go back. All you need to do is like do a bunch of lead code and interview, and then you're back at those big tech companies. So I think it's a very safe industry
Absolutely,
to be in.
absolutely. Like as an investor, even like if you think from an investor perspective, would you rather invest in somebody who has gone through multiple iterations of finding a company or founding a company, and or would you go with somebody who's never tried it, right? So
Hmm.
it's not seen as a failure, like you said, and the more companies you do, the people are like, well, okay, that's awesome. Like you get to learn so many things, and the next time you build a company, you get to skip so many steps that you learned about in the past company. So
Yeah, I never thought about it that way because even if they fail, then they know so many more things that they can apply to their next venture.
yeah,
Amazing.
yeah,
Okay.
you never restart. You start from where
Yeah.
you left off. So your
Yeah,
chances of
that
success are a lot higher.
pretty cool.
Statistically, even second-time founders are much, much more likely to succeed than first-time founders.
Yeah, and if there's a stat like that out there, that means second time founders are okay too. So like even if you fail the first time, it's fine. You can always be a second time founder.
True, true. You can always be a second-time founder. I love that.
Yeah. Okay, amazing. This episode has been very educative for me, but also very therapeutic because it was validating a lot of feelings that I'm going through while building this startup. So thank you so much for that. It was so amazing having you.
No, thank you so much for having me. And I don't know You're so inspirational. I don't know how you do your startup and also run this thing. Like me, I try to run my startup and then I do a little bit of social media and I can't do it. And so the kudos to you. This is awesome. And
Thank you.
yeah, and I appreciate you having me as well.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Go Girl podcast. For more such inspiring conversations, do not forget to subscribe. You can also follow me on Instagram at Ayodhya. Until next time, keep being unstoppable. You go, girl.